Inside the house, it's not a fight. It's not a medical emergency. It's not anything Bill Vale's brain had prepared a category for. 3 men are on their knees on the floor in a tight circle, heads bowed. And a woman is circling them. She's holding a book. She's shouting, but not in any language Bill recognizes. The sounds coming out of her mouth are violent, guttural, rhythmic. Like she's been doing this for a long time and knows exactly the cadence required. This isn't improvised. This is scripted, practiced. The entire scene has the precision of a ceremony. And then she stops. She looks up. She looks directly at Bill. And this is the moment that every person who hears the story identifies as the single most disturbing beat of the whole thing, because her eyes don't have the quality of someone who's been interrupted. She doesn't look startled. She looks satisfied, like she was expecting him, like his arrival at exactly that second was the final piece of something she'd been setting up. She points at him, rigid arm, unwavering finger, direct eye contact. The room goes completely quiet.
Before we dive into today's investigation, I want to be clear. The stories and theories shared on this channel are part of an alternative history exploration. We're digging into the unexplained, the unsettling, and the what-ifs of our world. Think of this as a journey into the dark side of history, part research, part legend. Watch with an open mind, but remember, this is for narrative and entertainment purposes only.
I don't believe in demons. I have never believed in demons. I spent 23 years building machines for NASA. My entire life was equations, blueprints, and cold hard physics. So when I tell you what happened to me, I need you to understand. I fought harder than anyone to prove myself wrong. That's Bill Vale talking. And that one sentence should stop you cold. Because this isn't some guy who got spooked by shadows and called a ghost hunter. This is an aerospace robotics engineer. The kind of man who lives and breathes the scientific method. The kind of man whose whole identity is built on not believing anything he can't measure. And here he is, sitting in front of a camera, saying a demon attacked him in his own home. Most paranormal stories fall apart fast. You dig into the source and it's always the same thing. Someone with a history of mental illness, someone who wants attention, someone who already had a pre-existing belief in the supernatural. The witness is always compromised in some way. That's the playbook. That's how rational people sleep at night after hearing these stories. You find the crack in the narrator, and the whole thing collapses. Bill Vale has no crack. His colleagues at NASA described him as one of the most analytically rigid people they had ever worked with. His own family said the man had zero imagination. Zero. Not a creative bone in his body. This is the exact type of person who would never manufacture a supernatural experience. He didn't have the wiring for it. And that's what makes this case so deeply unsettling. The one man in the room least likely to believe in the paranormal became the one man who couldn't escape it. The very framework of logic that science gives us, the one we use to wave away every ghost story we've ever heard, is about to be turned completely upside down. And the person doing the turning isn't a mystic. He's an engineer. Bill Vale wasn't just analytical, he was almost robotic in how he processed the world. People who knew him describe a man who couldn't function in abstraction. He needed things concrete, tangible. If he couldn't hold it, measure it, or run it through a diagnostic sequence, it simply didn't exist in his reality. He spent over 2 decades at NASA working in robotics. You don't get that job by being soft on the edges. You get that job by being someone who trusts data over instinct every single time. His colleagues remember him as someone who would run the same calculation 4 times just to confirm the answer he already knew was right. That's not paranoia. That's discipline. That's the kind of mind that builds machines that get launched into space and need to work perfectly on the first try. His family tells a specific story about him. When Bill was a kid, while other children were out playing make-believe or getting lost in fantasy worlds, he was building mechanical models and taking apart electronics to see how they worked. There was no inner world of imagination. His entire mental universe was external, physical, and solvable. That psychological baseline matters so much here, because when you understand just how deeply rooted in rationality this man was, you start to understand the horror of what's coming. Not the horror of the demon itself, but the horror of watching a man whose entire identity is built on logic get stripped of every single tool he has to defend himself. He had no framework for what was about to happen to him. None. He was about to be thrown into a situation that his entire brilliant mind was completely unequipped to handle. And the tragedy of that is almost unbearable to watch unfold. The year is 2002. Bill Vale is in his 40s. He has a career at NASA, a marriage, a structured life built brick by brick over decades. And then, in the space of what felt like a single moment, it's gone. His wife leaves him. Just like that. The marriage ends without the kind of warning his engineering brain would have needed to process it properly. And because Bill was the kind of man who never developed emotional coping mechanisms, because his whole life was logic and systems, not feelings, this hit him on a level most people can't fully understand. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was a total system failure. The architecture of his identity started crumbling. Here's the psychology behind that. When someone like Bill, a highly rigid, process-oriented personality, loses a major anchor in their life, they don't just grieve normally. They often experience what psychologists call an identity crisis at an almost existential level. Because their sense of self isn't built on emotional resilience or adaptability. It's built on structure. And when the structure goes, they go with it. He lost the marriage. Shortly after, he started losing his sense of place at NASA too. The professional identity that had carried him for over 2 decades started to feel hollow. He was adrift. A man who had never once in his life felt uncertain about the physical world around him suddenly found himself uncertain about everything. So he did what people in crisis do. He ran. He packed his life into boxes and drove back home to Arlington, Texas, looking for something familiar, looking for ground he could stand on. He didn't know, couldn't have known, that the ground waiting for him in Arlington was about to open right up beneath his feet. Arlington felt safe, and for a little while it actually was. Bill moved in with his younger brother Bob, who had a life there, a normal life, a wife, a home, a water purification company he ran. Real, grounded, everyday stuff. The kind of life that feels almost aggressively ordinary when you've been operating in the high-stakes pressure environment of NASA aerospace engineering. Bill started working at the water purification company. Service calls, maintenance jobs, scheduling. The kind of work that a man of his intelligence could do with half his brain tied behind his back. And that was the point. He needed simplicity. He needed routine that didn't demand everything from him. He needed to just breathe for a minute. There's something deeply human about that. When life blows up on you, the instinct is to get small for a while, to find something manageable, to trade the big, terrifying, complex world for something that fits inside your hands. Bill was doing that. He was rebuilding himself from the floor up, using the most basic tools available. Family, routine, work you can finish by 5 o'clock and leave at the door. And it worked for a stretch. Bob was good to him. The routine was stabilizing. Bill started to feel like maybe, just maybe, he could piece things back together. This is the part of the story where you almost want to exhale, where it seems like the worst might already be over. But this is also where the dramatic irony kicks in hard, because you already know what's coming, even if Bill doesn't. The safety he felt in Arlington was real, but it was also completely temporary. Something was already in motion, something that had nothing to do with divorces or career crises or brothers with water purification companies. Something much darker was heading straight for Bill Vale, and it wasn't going to knock before it came in. It starts with a phone call. Routine. The dispatcher at the water purification company has a service job for Bill. A house call. Customer needs someone to come out and look at their system. Nothing unusual about any of that. He'd done dozens of these. Then the dispatcher says something odd. The client has a very specific requirement. Bill needs to arrive at exactly 5 p.m. Not 4:58, not 5:02, exactly 5 o'clock. And this needs to be understood not as a preference but as a hard demand. The dispatcher delivers it with an apologetic tone. Like she knows it sounds strange, but she's just passing along what she was told. Bill shrugs it off. Weird clients exist. He's a service tech now, not a NASA engineer. He takes the job. He punches the address into his car and drives out. It's a Saturday afternoon. The neighborhood is quiet. The street looks completely normal. Houses, yards, the low hum of suburban life on a weekend. But he's early, so he parks down the street and waits. He's staring at the dashboard clock, watching the minutes tick. And here is where the psychology of this moment gets interesting, because there's something about being told to show up at an exact minute that does something to you unconsciously. Pulls at you. It makes you feel like you're being tracked, like someone is watching for you specifically, like your arrival matters in a way that goes beyond getting your water filter fixed. For 59, he starts the car. He pulls up to the property. It's a large brick home, solid and silent, not run down, actually well-maintained. The kind of house that doesn't give you anything obvious to be afraid of. And that silence, that perfect ordinary brick silence, makes the next few minutes so much worse. Bill walks up to the front porch. Everything still looks normal. He raises his hand to knock, and that's when he notices the door. It's not closed, not locked. It's unlatched, sitting slightly open, just a crack. And from inside that crack comes a sound. A woman screaming. Not screaming like she's excited or celebrating. Screaming like she's in agony. Like something is being done to her. Like she needs help right now. Bill freezes for a second. His engineer brain starts processing. What's the protocol here? He doesn't know what's happening inside. Could be domestic violence. Could be a medical emergency. He's a civilian, not law enforcement, but he's also a human being standing outside a door where someone sounds like they're being hurt. The civic instinct kicks in. He knocks on the open door. He calls out. The screaming doesn't stop. It gets louder, more intense, more desperate. And now here's the thing that starts crawling up the back of your neck. The screaming doesn't sound like it's responding to him. It doesn't shift in that natural way sound shifts when someone hears a knock and turns toward a door. It's like the screaming is on its own track. Like it exists independent of him, independent of the moment. But he pushes forward anyway, because that's the kind of man Bill is. He doesn't run from things he doesn't understand. He investigates. He steps closer. He pushes the door open further. He crosses the threshold. And the moment he does, everything about the situation goes from unsettling to something else entirely. Something that doesn't have a clean, rational category. Something that's going to change him forever. Inside the house, it's not a fight. It's not a medical emergency. It's not anything Bill Vale's brain had prepared a category for. 3 men are on their knees on the floor in a tight circle, heads bowed. And a woman is circling them. She's holding a book. She's shouting, but not in any language Bill recognizes. The sounds coming out of her mouth are violent, guttural, rhythmic. Like she's been doing this for a long time and knows exactly the cadence required. This isn't improvised. This is scripted, practiced. The entire scene has the precision of a ceremony. And then she stops. She looks up. She looks directly at Bill. And this is the moment that every person who hears this story identifies as the single most disturbing beat of the whole thing, because her eyes don't have the quality of someone who's been interrupted. She doesn't look startled. She looks satisfied, like she was expecting him. Like his arrival at exactly that second was the final piece of something she'd been setting up. She points at him, rigid arm, unwavering finger, direct eye contact. The room goes completely quiet. Here's what investigators and spiritual researchers who later reviewed this case believe was happening in that moment. They believe the woman was conducting a ritual specifically designed to transfer an entity from her environment to someone else, to a new host. And Bill, punctual, civic-minded, rational Bill, had walked himself right into the center of it. The 5 p.m. requirement, the open door, the screaming designed to pull someone inside. It wasn't accidental. Every detail had been engineered. For him, Bill runs. There's no decision-making involved. His body just goes. He turns around, he hits that porch, he gets to his car, and he drives. Fast. Without looking back. He calls the dispatcher on his way out, and his voice is flat. That specific kind of flat that people get when their nervous system has been maxed out and the only way to keep functioning is to go completely monotone. He tells her he won't be going back to that address. Ever. He doesn't explain. She doesn't push. He just drives. By the time he gets home, something interesting has happened in his head. His scientific mind, the one that spent 23 years at NASA, has already started constructing a narrative. He sits in his living room and he literally talks himself through it. He tells himself it was a prayer group. He tells himself the screaming was just emotionally intense religious expression. He tells himself the woman pointing at him was a coincidence, or maybe she was inviting him to join. He builds a rational story, brick by rational brick, and he stacks it between himself and what he actually saw. Psychologists call this mechanism dissociation-adjacent rationalization. When a person experiences something that directly contradicts their core worldview, especially a rigid, scientifically based one, the brain sometimes refuses to process it accurately. Instead, it creates an alternative explanation that fits within the existing framework, no matter how much the explanation strains. Because the alternative, accepting that something genuinely inexplicable just happened, is more threatening to the psyche than any amount of intellectual dishonesty. Bill tells himself he's fine. He makes himself a microwave dinner. He sits in front of the TV. He's fine. He's completely fine. He's not fine. He's sitting in the dark. Just the blue light of the TV, eating his microwave dinner. The house is quiet. He's starting to decompress. He's almost convinced himself the whole afternoon was just a bizarre moment that he can file away and eventually turn into a weird story he tells at dinner parties. Then something moves. It's at the edge of his vision. Fast. Low to the ground. Small. Gone before he can turn his head all the way to look at it directly. That's the specific horror of peripheral movement. Your brain registers it before you can analyze it, so what you're left with is the sensation without the information. You know something moved. You don't know what. Bill puts down the food. He gets up. He turns on every light in the house. And now his engineering instincts kick back in because this he can handle. This is a problem with a solution. There's an animal in the house somehow. A mouse, maybe. A bird that got in through a cracked window. Something with a physical, traceable, explainable origin point. He's going to find it. He searches for an hour. Methodically. Corners, baseboards, under furniture, inside cabinets. He checks the windows for any possible entry point. He checks the door frames. He gets on his hands and knees and looks along the floor with a flashlight. An hour of careful, systematic searching by a man who knows how to conduct a proper investigation. Nothing. Not a single trace of anything living. No droppings, no feathers, no scratches on the woodwork. Complete emptiness. And that seed of self-doubt that had been hovering since the house. It takes root. Just barely. Just enough to make him feel slightly less certain about everything than he did this morning. He goes to bed with the lights on. All of them. The bedroom, the hallway, the bathroom, everything burning bright. He falls asleep like that because exhaustion eventually overrides everything else. Then, somewhere in the dead middle of the night, he wakes up. Something is running across his feet. Not walking, not pressing, running. The specific feeling of small legs moving fast across the top of the blanket right at his ankles. And this sensation is so clear, so immediate, so physical that his body reacts before his brain can catch up. He yanks his legs up to his chest. He's sitting bolt upright in the bed, heart slamming, wide awake. The room is lit. He can see everything. There is nothing on the bed. There is nothing on the floor at the foot of the bed. The room looks exactly as he left it. He gets up. He tears the bedroom apart. He pulls the blanket off the mattress. He opens every dresser drawer. He yanks the closet door open. He gets down and puts his cheek against the floor to look under the bed frame with his phone flashlight. Nothing. No animal. No insect. No physical explanation at all. Here's the psychology of this moment. The first time something unexplainable happens to you, it's unsettling. The second time it happens, the body's stress response kicks into overdrive because the pattern has now been established. Your nervous system understands on a primal level that something is wrong. Something is coming for you, and there's nowhere to go where the problem isn't already there waiting. That's a specific, uniquely suffocating kind of terror. Bill is trapped inside his own house with something he cannot see and cannot explain. Eventually, he falls back asleep. What other option does he have? His body forces it. He goes under. Then the bed starts shaking. Not vibrating, shaking. The way a mattress shakes when a big truck rolls past, except bigger. Except more sustained. Except there is no gradual build and fade, it's just suddenly violent movement. His entire four-poster bed is rocking, and his first thought, the completely reasonable first thought of any person who has ever lived through a natural disaster, is earthquake. He rolls out of bed and braces himself. In a door frame, the way you're supposed to, he's covering his head. He's waiting for the walls to crack. And then it stops. The instant his feet hit the floor, it stops. He stands there in the doorway for a second, completely still. The house is quiet. He walks to the window. He looks outside. And here is what he sees. Nothing. The street is dead calm. The trees aren't moving. The neighbors' houses are dark and undisturbed. There are no car alarms going off, which is what you'd get in even a mild seismic event. No dogs barking. No lights coming on in windows across the street. None of the secondary evidence that would exist if the ground had actually moved. Just his house. Just his bed. Just him. He stands at that window for a long time. Because a rational man who eliminates earthquake has to work through every other explanation. And one by one, each of them collapses. And the space where the explanations used to be fills up with something very quiet and very cold that his engineering brain doesn't have a name for. Bill doesn't sleep anymore that night. He sits down at his computer and he goes to work. Because work is what he knows. Because problems that can be solved at a keyboard feel manageable in a way that nothing else does right now. He starts pulling seismic data for the Arlington area. Nothing. No registered activity for miles. He broadens the search. He looks at military operations in the region. Could have been a sonic boom from a jet, maybe? He looks at oil rig activity, industrial sites nearby, anything that could account for vibration at that scale. He works through it systematically, the way he would have worked through a diagnostic problem at NASA. Every door closes. Every search comes back empty. And the rational explanations he'd been stacking between himself and the truth are getting thinner and thinner. Then his internet cuts out. Just dies mid-search, mid-sentence in a search query. His connection just vanishes. He tries to refresh. Nothing. He reboots the router. Nothing. He calls the internet company's technical support line. The call connects. A representative picks up. And then, under the professional hold music, beneath the customer service background noise, something else bleeds in. A voice, not on hold, not coming through any normal channel. It's there in the line itself, layered underneath everything else. Guttural, rhythmic, speaking in the exact same tongues Bill heard being shouted in that brick house. The same sounds, the same cadence, the same violent, structured pattern that he told himself was just religious expression. The technical support rep keeps talking. She sounds normal. She can't hear it. He's the only one it's for. Bill hangs up. He's shaking. He sits with his phone in his hands and he tries to talk himself through it one more time. Sleep deprivation, stress, trauma response from the weird house visit. The brain does strange things when it's pushed to its limits. He knows that. He's a scientist. He knows all of this. But then the phone rings. It's the internet company calling back. A technician following up on his service call. And this technician, before Bill can say a single word, says something that changes everything. The technician tells him that something strange happened with his call. That the secure corporate line, not a consumer line, not a shared line, a locked, dedicated corporate service channel, had been hijacked midway through by an external audio source that technical staff couldn't identify. The technician sounds genuinely unsettled. He asks Bill if he heard something unusual on the call. Bill doesn't answer right away. Think about what this moment means. Bill has been alone with this thing. He's been the only witness to every event. And every time something happens, the logical exit door is still technically open. Sleep deprivation, stress, imagination finally developing in a man who'd never had one before. Every event until now has had a possible rational explanation that he could use to hold himself together. But this technician is an independent person. A scripted corporate employee following up on a service call. He has no connection to the brick house, no connection to the ceremony, no reason to participate in whatever is happening to Bill. And he heard it. An independent human being on a separate line in a separate location confirmed that something external and unidentifiable hijacked that call. Bill's rational safety net doesn't just bend here. It snaps completely in half. After the call, Bill can't sit at the computer anymore. He goes to his bedroom. He doesn't even try to rationalize it this time. He just goes to bed, pulls the sheet over his head, and lies there with every light in the room on. He's reverting to the most primal human response to terror that exists. He's hiding. He's a grown man, an aerospace engineer, hiding under a sheet because it's the only action available to him. He's watching through the fabric. The sheet is thin enough that, with the light on, he can see basic shapes through it. He's watching the foot of the bed. He doesn't know why he's specifically watching the foot of the bed, but he is. Time passes. The room is very quiet, and then a hand comes up from under the mattress. Pale, moving slowly at first, groping, feeling for something. Not the fast blur of the small creature. This is deliberate, intentional, something that wants him to see it. The hand reaches up from beneath the frame where a hand cannot possibly be, because there is no space under a mattress for a human being, and it reaches toward his foot. It wraps toward him. It almost makes contact, and then it retracts, slowly, back down into nothing, into a space too small to contain it. Bill does not move. He does not scream. He lies perfectly still under that sheet, breathing, with every light blazing around him, and he understands in this moment, with the clarity that only real terror can produce, that whatever followed him home from that house is not finished. It hasn't even gotten started. Morning comes. The sun comes up like it always does, indifferent, bright, completely unbothered by what happened in that bedroom 6 hours ago. Bill gets dressed. He goes to work. He sits in meetings. He answers phones. He talks to customers about water filtration systems. And he tells absolutely no one. This is the part of the story that people underestimate when they think about what he was carrying. Because keeping a secret like that isn't just uncomfortable. It's actively corrosive. Every normal conversation becomes this weird performance. Every time someone asks how he's sleeping, every time Bob asks if he's okay, every time a coworker makes small talk at the coffee machine, Bill has to construct a version of himself in real time that doesn't include the hand that reached up from under his mattress last night. He has to be a person who didn't see that. Over and over again, all day long. Why does he stay quiet? Partly because he's terrified of what it would do to his reputation. He's a NASA engineer. He built machines that went to space. If it gets out that he's telling people a demon followed him home from a service call, that identity, the only stable one he has left after the divorce and the career upheaval, is gone. People will not look at him the same way. He knows that. He's not wrong. But there's another reason. A deeper one. He doesn't have the language yet. Even now, after everything that's happened, the rational part of his brain is still fighting. Still insisting there's an explanation he hasn't thought of yet. He can't tell anyone because to tell anyone is to admit that he believes it. And he's not ready to believe it. Not yet. Then the sun starts going down. And he has to go home. He leaves every light on when he gets home. He sits in his chair, plate of food in his lap, TV going. He's trying to perform normalcy hard enough that it might actually work. He takes a bite of food. A glass bottle flies across the room. Not falls, not rolls off a surface. Flies hard horizontal like it was thrown with force and intent. Directly past his head. He feels the air move as it passes him. It hits the wall and shatters. And in the same instant, like it was choreographed, every single light in the house cuts out simultaneously. Not flickering, not dimming, just gone. Total darkness. Bill sits in the chair for a second. Then he gets up very carefully. He moves toward the closet because that's where he keeps a flashlight. He knows this house well enough to navigate it dark. He's counting doors, counting steps, keeping his hand on the wall. He gets to the closet. He reaches up for the flashlight on the top shelf. And a heavy box on that same shelf, a big, solid, full box, gets violently lifted. He can hear it come off the surface. And then it slams back down. Hard. The sound is huge in the dark, claustrophobic space. Like something is in there with him and it wants him to know. Bill grabs the flashlight and gets out of that closet. He stands in his hallway with the beam cutting through the dark, and he understands that whatever this thing is, it's not doing random, ambient haunting stuff. It's not cold spots and creaking floorboards. It's active. It's physical. It's capable of moving objects with force. And it knows exactly where he is. Bill calls Bob. He doesn't explain everything. He can't, not yet. But he asks him to come over right now. Bob comes. Bob is a good brother. He shows up without a lot of questions because Bill sounds like someone who needs another human being in the room, and that's enough reason. Bill leads him to the closet. He doesn't set it up, doesn't explain the context, doesn't prime Bob's expectations. He just opens the closet door and asks Bob to stand inside for a few minutes. Just stand there and tell him what happens, if anything. Bob, being a good and patient brother, steps inside. He stands in the dark closet. He waits. Something hits his leg. Something hits his face. He knows immediately what this is about. He knows why he's been put in this closet. And here's where the human story gets genuinely heartbreaking, because Bob makes a choice in that moment that is entirely understandable and completely wrong. He steps out of the closet, looks at his brother, and says nothing happened. He lies. He looks Bill directly in the eyes and tells him the closet was completely uneventful. Why would he do that? Because Bob loves Bill. And Bill has already been through so much, the divorce, the career disruption, the move back home. He looks fragile. And Bob is afraid that if he confirms what just happened to him in that closet, He will push his brother over an edge that he won't come back from. He's trying to protect him. He thinks the kindest thing he can do is refuse to validate what he suspects is a mental health crisis. He's wrong. The kindest thing would have been the truth. And his lie is about to leave Bill completely alone in this for a lot longer. Bob's denial hits Bill like a wall. He was so desperate for someone else to confirm that the reality he was experiencing was actually real, that he wasn't losing his mind, that something genuinely external was happening to him, and instead he got his brother looking him in the eye and shutting the door. He calls Michael. Michael is a friend, and more importantly for what's about to happen, Michael is a professional sound engineer. He works with audio equipment for a living. His entire professional existence is built around capturing, analyzing, and documenting sound. If anyone is positioned to help Bill get evidence of what's been happening on those phone calls, it's Michael. They're talking on the phone, and then it happens again. The voice bleeds in. That same guttural, rhythmic, impossible voice speaking in the same tongues from the brick house. It's under the call, weaving through it, directed at Bill with the same specific personal quality it's always had. Michael hears it too. And here's where being a sound engineer matters enormously. Because Michael doesn't panic. He doesn't drop the phone. His professional instincts kick in and he does the one thing that could actually produce evidence. He reroutes the call through his studio equipment and hits record. He's capturing the audio in real time at professional quality through proper recording gear. They stay on the line for a minute and a half. Bill is screaming at him to hang up, to get out, to stop. Michael keeps recording. He won't stop because he is listening to something his trained audio ear cannot explain and he needs to get it on tape. A minute and a half of it. Documented. Captured. For the first time in this whole nightmare, Bill might have proof. Michael plays the tape back. And the recording is empty. Not degraded. Not static. Not muffled. Empty. Clean silence where the voice should be, broken only by the two men yelling. Michael's voice saying he's got it, stay on the line, keep going, and Bill's voice telling him to hang up. Two men reacting with enormous emotional intensity to something that, according to the recording, simply isn't there. This is the moment the case takes the most chilling turn of all. Because it's no longer about whether or not something is happening. They have two people who heard the same thing at the same time on a recorded line, and the recording contains nothing. Which means the entity is not broadcasting through the air in a way that microphones pick up. It's broadcasting directly into consciousness. It's choosing who hears it. A physical recording device is irrelevant to it because it doesn't operate on a frequency that physical devices can capture. Think about what that means for a moment. The entire apparatus of science, cameras, microphones, seismic sensors, audio recorders, all of it only works because the things we're trying to capture operate within physical reality. Temperature has a reading. Sound has a waveform. Light has a spectrum. But something that bypasses all of that, something that goes directly from itself into the human nervous system without passing through physical space. There's no instrument in existence designed to catch it. Bill's engineering background, the thing that was supposed to be his greatest asset, his ability to find and document and explain, it's useless here. The entity doesn't just exist outside his experience. It exists outside his entire methodology. And it knows that. And that's worse than anything it's physically done to him so far. Bill decides he needs a witness who can see, not just hear. The audio evidence has collapsed. But the creature, that small, fast, bipedal thing that keeps moving at the edge of his vision, is physical. It moves through space, can be seen. He invites Bob and Bob's wife Cindy over for dinner. A normal reason to have family over. He gets them at the table and then he does something calculated. He has mapped exactly which chair in the dining room gives a person a clear sight line through the doorway into the area where the creature moves. He has worked it out the way he'd work out a sight angle in an engineering blueprint. He asks Bob casually to sit in that specific chair. And then they talk. They eat. They do the normal thing. Bill is watching the doorway, waiting. Time passes. Then Bob goes completely still. His fork stops midway to his mouth. His face changes. And Bill knows, before Bob says a single word, just from the quality of Bob's face, that Bob just saw it. Bob saw the same creature. The same small, fast, distinctly bipedal thing that has been haunting Bill since the night he came home from the brick house. Bob can't undo what he did in the closet. He can't take back the lie he told his brother when he walked out of there and said nothing happened. But he can't hold the lie now either, because the creature just walked across the doorway in front of him in a way that leaves no room for denial. He puts down his fork. He looks at Bill. And he says the words Bill has been desperate to hear from someone, anyone. I saw it. Bob just saw it. But Bill needs more than one person. One could still be explained away. A trick of the light, a shared stress response between two brothers who've been spending a lot of time together under unusual circumstances. Bill is still an engineer. He still needs the data to replicate. So he asks Cindy to move to Bob's chair. Just try it for a few minutes. Cindy doesn't know why. Nobody at this table has told her what Bob just saw or what's been happening in this house. She just knows her brother-in-law has a specific request about seating arrangements, and she's willing to go along with it. She sits down. She starts talking. Maybe 5 minutes pass. And then she screams. The creature runs through the doorway. Same as before. Same bipedal shape, same speed, same specific quality of movement that makes every human instinct say, that's wrong. Cindy doesn't have context for it, so her reaction is pure, unfiltered terror. She's out of her chair. She's across the room. Her hands are shaking. 3 independent witnesses. 3 separate sightings of the same entity in the same location. Bill, Bob, Cindy. 1 exhausted man who'd been fighting to be believed. 1 brother who had lied out of love. And 1 woman who had no prior knowledge of any of this and walked into it cold. And here's the emotional beat that this moment carries. Bill starts crying. Not from fear. Not from relief exactly. Something more complicated. Because being validated by people you love, being told you aren't crazy, you saw what you saw, when you've been carrying that alone, that does something to you. Something good and something devastating at the same time. Bill doesn't call a priest. He doesn't call a pastor. He doesn't reach out to anyone operating from a religious or spiritual framework. Because that's not who he is and that's not how his brain works. Instead, he looks for a paranormal investigation team that thinks like he does. Scientists, people who run tests before they make claims. He finds Brian Hall's unit out of Texas. These are serious investigators, not TV ghost hunters, not people who show up with EVP recorders and call everything they capture evidence. They're methodical. They arrive at the house with a skeptical baseline and a protocol specifically designed to eliminate every non-paranormal explanation before they'll acknowledge anything else. They spend hours doing what Bill has already done, but with professional equipment and multiple operators. They check the foundation for settling. They pull data on the HVAC system, looking for vibration patterns that could account for what Bill experienced in his bed. They test the window frames and structural supports for any resonance issues. They measure electromagnetic fields throughout the house, looking for anomalies that could cause hallucinations or heightened suggestibility in the nervous system. Everything gets tested. Everything gets ruled out. And when you rule everything out, when the HVAC is clean, the foundation is solid, the EM fields are within normal range, the structure is sound, you are left with a specific conclusion. Not a comfortable one. Not one that goes down easy for men who operate on the scientific method. But a clean, logical conclusion nonetheless. If every rational explanation has been eliminated, then what remains, no matter how improbable it seems, has to be taken seriously. Brian Hall's team reaches that conclusion, and then they decide to go deeper. The team gets to work converting Bill's bedroom into something closer to a high-security monitoring system than a paranormal investigation setup. They rig a lattice of motion-detecting laser beams across the entire room, doorway, corners, the perimeter around the bed, the foot of the mattress. Every cubic foot of that space is covered. If anything physical moves through that room, something trips a beam and the system registers it. They also set up infrared cameras, multiple angles, full coverage. Whatever happens in that room, they'll have visual documentation from multiple vantage points, all time-stamped, all continuous. No gaps, no blind spots. And then they go downstairs. They sit in the dark with their monitors. And they wait. The waiting is its own specific kind of psychological experience. Because when you're sitting in the dark staring at a monitor of a completely still, empty room, you become hyper-aware of the silence, of the quality of it. You start noticing every ambient sound in the house, the refrigerator, the settling of wood, the air pressure changing slightly as the temperature drops at night. You become calibrated, alert in a way that's impossible to sustain without cost. The room on the monitors doesn't move. The beams stay clean. The cameras show nothing. For a long stretch of time, the most sophisticated monitoring equipment these investigators own is watching an empty room be empty. And then one of the investigators makes a call. They're getting nowhere sitting here. The entity hasn't shown up on its own. They need to provoke it. Someone is going to have to go into that room alone and invite it to respond. One investigator goes up alone. He sits on the mattress. He's in the live feed on every monitor downstairs, completely visible, sitting in the center of a room full of laser beams and cameras with the lights off. He starts talking out loud to the empty room. He's not doing it dramatically. This isn't theater. He's doing it the way you'd conduct a professional interview, measured, direct, specific. He's acknowledging the entity. He's telling it that it's been documented, that people know it's here, that they're not leaving until they see something more. He's essentially presenting terms of engagement to an empty room, which sounds insane until you remember that 3 people have already watched a bipedal creature run across that floor, and an independent phone company technician confirmed that something hijacked their corporate line. Downstairs, the investigators are watching the monitors. The beams are clean. The room on camera is still. The investigator on the bed keeps talking. And then one of the laser units, a physical piece of equipment sitting on a surface in the room, is violently thrown to the floor. Not knocked over, not tipped, thrown, with force. Off camera because it's outside the camera's current angle, but unmistakably loud. The sound hits the monitors before the investigator on the bed has time to register what just happened. He registers it immediately after. He's off the bed in a second. He's down the stairs faster than people with working camera footage have ever seen a man move. He's through the door and into the hallway where his colleagues are, and his face tells them everything they need to know. Whatever he asked for, whatever he invited, he got it. And now nobody wants to go back in that room. The team pulls back and reviews the footage. They're all downstairs now, hunched over monitors, scrubbing through the timestamps from the last hour. The thrown laser unit is on camera. You can see it on the floor in the aftermath, in a position that makes no physical sense given where it was sitting. But that's not the most compelling thing on the tape. While they're reviewing the infrared footage from before the investigator went up, during the long, quiet waiting period when the room appeared empty on the monitors, something is visible in the footage that wasn't visible to the naked eye when they were watching it in real time. A mist. Thick, structured, not behaving the way fog or condensation behaves. It's moving through the laser lattice in patterns. Swirling, but with direction, like it knows where it's going. They get their audio specialist on the tape. They boost the gain significantly on the recording from that same window of time. And underneath the ambient noise of the house, very faint, barely there, something structured starts to emerge. Not random static. Not the settling sounds of the building. Words, or what sounds like words, in the same tonal pattern that Bill has heard on those phone calls. The same cadence the woman at the brick house was chanting. Nobody in that room has an explanation. Not one that fits inside their existing professional framework. The mist wasn't visible without infrared. The voice wasn't audible without boosted gain. The entity isn't presenting itself at frequencies human senses can pick up without assistance. And yet here it is, documented, time-stamped, on professional equipment operated by investigators with zero reason to fabricate anything. For the first time, something is captured. It isn't enough to fully explain it, but it's something. Brian Hall's team wants Bill out of the house. They've seen enough. They're professionals who came in skeptical and left convinced, and what they're convinced of is that whatever is in this house is not ambient background energy. It's aggressive, it's physical, it's targeted specifically at Bill. And they're telling him, with the authority of investigators who have seen a lot of things in a lot of houses, that this one is different. He needs to leave. Bill won't go. His pride is part of it. The house is his, and being run out of his own house by something invisible feels like a defeat he isn't capable of accepting. His stubbornness is another part. He's a man who has never walked away from a problem that wasn't fully solved. And this problem is definitely not solved. And maybe underneath all of that, there's something else. Some part of him that needs to see this through to whatever the end of it is, because leaving feels like it would follow him anyway. So the investigators leave, and Bill is alone. Late that night, a sound hits the house like a collision, like a massive semi-truck has run into the outer walls at full speed. The entire structure shudders. Bill's first thought is that the house has been hit. He grabs his flashlight and he runs outside into the night air, scanning the property. He goes around the whole perimeter. He checks every wall. He looks at the yard, the driveway, the street. There's nothing. No vehicle damage. No tire tracks. No broken fence or disturbed landscaping. The yard is completely undisturbed, the way a yard looks when absolutely nothing has hit the house beside it. The neighborhood is quiet. Not a neighbor light on. Not a single person or car that might have witnessed whatever just generated that impact. Bill stands in his yard in the dark and he breathes. And then he goes back inside. The second he steps through the front door, the sound happens again. This time it's inside. In the dining room, a detonation-level crash, right there in the house with him. Something shifts in Bill at this point. The fear has been so constant for so long that it passes through a threshold and converts into something else, into rage. Raw, furious, irrational rage directed at something that doesn't have a body or a face. He starts yelling. He's screaming at the top of his voice for whatever this is to show itself, to come out in the open, to stop hiding in the dark and finish what it started at that brick house if it has the guts. He charges upstairs. He goes directly into the bedroom. He's in full fight mode, which is not the mode any investigator or spiritual expert would recommend, but it's the only mode he has left. And the moment he clears the doorframe, a sound wall hits him. Not a crash, not a bang. A continuous, looping, simultaneous cacophony of shattering. Like every piece of glass in the house is being broken at once, over and over and over, at a volume that makes hearing impossible. It doesn't stop, keeps going. It's coming from everywhere in the room and nowhere specific. He claps his hands over his ears. He's pressed against the wall. The sound is so intense his knees start to give. And the room, the whole time, is completely still. Nothing is moving. Nothing is breaking. The sound is real. He feels it in his chest, feels it in his skull. But the room around him is quiet and motionless. The entity is generating pure acoustic terror from no physical source, aimed directly at the man who just charged up his stairs screaming for a fight. The message is clear. You can't fight this. You were never going to win. And then the sound stops. Instantly, complete silence, like a switch being thrown. Bill is on the bed. He doesn't remember getting there. He's curled on his side, shaking. The rage is completely gone, replaced by something smaller and quieter and more honest. The terror of a person who has just been shown very clearly exactly how powerless they are. His fight mode tried to engage an entity that doesn't fight back the way anything in his experience has ever fought back. And it didn't work. Nothing he has, nothing he's tried, nothing his engineering brain can design or his physical body can do has any effect on this at all. He's lying on the bed in the fetal position. And at the foot of the bed, something rises. A silhouette, 6 feet tall. Pure darkness, not dark-colored, not shadowed, but light-absorbing in a way that's different from shadow. A shape that makes the darkness look denser and more solid where it stands. And within that shape, a detail, a tooth, protruding, jagged, briefly visible for just a moment. It jerks forward. One hard, violent movement toward Bill's face. And it makes a sound, a grunt, a direct exhalation aimed right at him. Personal, deliberate, like punctuation at the end of a sentence that says, "I was here first. This is my territory, and you are mine." Then it evaporates. Completely. The room is just a room again. Bill is still curled on the bed. The lights are still on. And Bill lies there, knowing with absolute certainty that whatever this is, it won. Tonight, at least, it absolutely won. After that night, Bill's body starts keeping score. He begins waking up with scratches on his chest. Not cuts from something he bumped into in the dark. Deep, deliberate scratches. Grouped, parallel. The kind of marks that look intentional, made with something specific by something precise. He photographs them. He has no memory of them being made. There's no way he's doing it to himself. The positioning is wrong, the angle is wrong, and besides, Bill Vale doesn't have that psychology. He's not a self-harm type. He's barely even an introspective type. The stress accumulates in his cardiovascular system. He starts having chest episodes, severe enough that he gets hospitalized multiple times. Not minor anxiety attacks, but cardiac events serious enough that the state initiates welfare checks on him. Official welfare checks. State-documented concern for a man who has now been designated as someone who might not be okay on his own. And through all of this, the connections keep crystallizing in his mind. He goes back through everything. The 5 p.m. requirement, the open door, the woman who stopped her chanting the instant he walked in and pointed at him like she'd been expecting exactly him. He thinks about the timing, the specificity, the design of the whole encounter. He comes to a conclusion that other people in similar situations have reached, documented in theological and paranormal literature across multiple cultures. The woman in the brick house wasn't just conducting a religious ceremony. She was conducting an exorcism of her own environment. And the entity she was removing needed somewhere to go. Bill was the vessel she selected. The entire house call was engineered to deliver a specific human being to a specific location at a specific time so she could transfer what was in her house into him. Bill didn't answer a service call that day. He walked into a trap. Multiple exorcisms have been performed in that Arlington house. Multiple. By different practitioners from different traditions using different methods. None of them have ended what began the night Bill Vale walked through that brick house door. The activity continues. It has continued for over 18 years. And Bill is still there. He has been offered money for the house. He has been advised by investigators, by clergy, by family, by friends. Everyone with any knowledge of what lives in those walls has told him to sell, to leave, to go somewhere the entity hasn't established its foothold. He refuses, every time, and his reason is simple. He knows what's in that house. He knows exactly what it's capable of. He's documented it, photographed it, recorded it, survived it, been hospitalized because of it. He understands in his body and in his bones, with the same certainty that NASA engineers put into load-bearing calculations, what happens if an innocent family moves in without any of that knowledge. So he stays. The man who spent his whole life on logic and systems and hard physical reality now guards a house in Arlington, Texas that contains something he cannot explain, cannot fix, and cannot make go away. His entire identity as an engineer was built on solving problems. And this is the one problem he has found that he cannot solve. He can only contain it. He can only stay between it and the rest of the world. Bill Vale walked into a trap on a Saturday afternoon in 2002. He's been standing in the doorway ever since. Not because he can't leave, but because leaving would mean putting someone else in the spot where he's standing. And that's the one thing his conscience won't let him do. Some men spend their whole lives looking for a purpose that's bigger than themselves. Bill didn't look for his, found him, at exactly 5 p.m.